Welcome back to the Casual Combat MMA podcast with myself, Nelson Baker, and my co-host, Cal Gruber. Cal, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing awesome. I had a great weekend. I dropped a nice 8-point buck on Saturday night and found it with the bow. And, I'm fired up about the fights that happened last week, and I'm even more fired up about the ones coming up.
Absolutely. We had a card that was not highly touted this past weekend. We covered it. We gave our picks a little bit, but I think there were some very good fights. It has seemed like lately that really some of the bangers have been those underlying cards that nobody's really hyped up about. And I feel like the takeaways from some of these fights are some new up-and-coming fighters, which is right in our wheelhouse, which is very cool. I have to admit that I was at a 1-year-old's birthday party this weekend. I was with family. I did not have a chance to watch all of the fights. I was able to see a few of them on my phone when I was able to get away. But outside of that, really, Cal, I think you're going to kind of take the lead on this. And you did your research. You've got some of the hot takes, and let's get it going.
Yeah, I left Saturday night after I got my buck, then watched the main card and had several beers while watching the main card, and ended the night very fired up. So we'll get into that.
Let's do it.
All right. So first, let's talk about your guy, Casey Kenny. You got to see that fight.
Dude, my man, Casey Kenny, he won a unanimous decision. Again, I didn't get to see the fight. Like I was doing stuff with family, but man, I saw the highlights. It was an absolutely dominant performance. He jumped out of the cage, shouted that he's ready to fight next week, right in Dana's face. We actually made Mr. Kenny's Instagram story. He put us talking about him on the episode last week on his story. So that's kind of cool to get some recognition. And yeah, it was awesome. I mean, he was a huge favorite
Dude,
as it was.
Yeah. Cooked his opponent's ribs up.
Yeah, he was absolutely dominant. I think it's clear that the move up to bantamweight for him from flyweight was a really, really good decision. I think not only did he look big at 135, it looked like he now has introduced himself as somebody who is competitive in a more keystone weight class in the UFC. I think given a choice, I think someone would want to be a competitive bantamweight versus a competitive flyweight. You know what I mean? Just because of the coverage in the media and the outlook on those weight classes in the eye of the casual fan is.
Yep. Kind of had a newfound power, I thought, with those shots. I mean, oh my gosh, those shots to the body, he was just tearing up his opponent. That was fun to watch. It's fun. It's really fun when Nelson and I pick out a guy in here and tell you they're going to be good, and then they do look good. That feels way better than when you tell everyone TJ Laramie is going to be really good and he gets subbed in 15 seconds or something. So I'm glad this one worked out for you, Nelson.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm happy.
Last fight of the prelims, we had Carlos Condit versus Court McGee.
Dude,
kind of looked pretty good.
Dude, he did not look like old Carlos Condit, but he looked like new, rejuvenated, revived Carlos Condit. He controlled the whole fight. Right when it ended, I thought I had scored at 3-0 Condit and was not super confident about that, but all three judges scored at 3-0 Condit. He even got a huge knockdown that would have resulted in a KO or a TKO at the buzzer in the first round. But yeah, that being said, Court McGee is a guy that has been around a really long time. I believe he was the Ultimate Fighter champ for one of the later seasons. But not necessarily a perennial name. Like, it's not like he came in and took out a Robbie Lawler or a Tyron Woodley, a guy that's, a little bit down and out right now, but still a huge name. I think Court McGee was the right fight for him to have, in his comeback fight after having been 2 years laid off. And
yeah, this was like the first time Dana White's like with one of these older guys that's been around for a while. He's like, hey, I'm going to give you a guy that you can fight with instead of like, oh, you're an old guy on kind of a losing streak. Let's throw you to some more wolves.
Exactly. And I think that Carlos Condit proved that he is ready for a step up in competition. But what I don't want to see is him beat a guy like Court McGee and then now get thrown into a fight that he is vastly overmatched. I think a great matchup could be either Nick Diaz or Robbie Lawler at this point.
Yeah.
Robbie Lawler did beat Condit in one of Lawler's title defenses, so it could be a little bit personal for Condit, to go back and get that, win back over a guy who beat him for a belt, as well as, a guy who to be honest, in Robbie Lawler could use an opponent like Carlos Condit.
Yep.
I mean, you could even build that as a co-main event or a main event of a card that doesn't have much going on outside of it. I mean,
Loser
a
retires.
rematch of a belt
Loser
fight,
retires.
albeit, 6 or 7 years ago, but still.
Yeah. Okay, so first match on the main card, we had Dusko Todorovic, who I highlighted last week, and he looked like an absolute stud with massive power. And he showed off he could wrestle a little bit. He had a nice takedown in the second that ended with him getting the TKO, but his striking, I mean, he reminds me of, and I'm not saying he's as good as Colby Covington, but his sheer volume reminds me of Colby Covington with power.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he's fighting Decon Townsend, and so I'm sure he looked like he could land everything he wanted to. I'm not sure that happens against a top-tier opponent, but he was taking a ton of shots and landing all of them with big power.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe Townsend took some of the shots he took. I mean, I'm just really impressed. I'm excited to see Dusko fight again. I think he can be with the top guys in this division.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I didn't get to see his fight, but I saw the highlights, and it was, I mean, he got a performance of the night bonus for a reason.
Yeah.
And again, I will say to you what you said to me. Congratulations on picking a good showcase fighter last week.
Yeah. The next fight
hold on. I do want to revisit one fight that was on the undercard that I did get to see that resulted in a split draw that was mind-boggling. And it was Josh Kulabau versus Jourdain. And it was a very competitive fight. And it ended with one scorer scoring at 28-28. That was the tie.
Yep.
It resulted in one guy seeing it 30-27 for Josh Kulabau, and another saw it 29-28 for Jourdain. Now, not only are those erratic scores of a fight, none of them were even resemblant of each other. However, what I want to point out is as I was, watching on my phone, and I thought about it for about 15 minutes, I was like, how could that have been a draw? Like, that doesn't make any sense. It could only have been possible that one of the rounds, that the first round, one of the judges saw 10-8 for Kulabau, and the other judge saw it 10-9 for the other guy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Which, how could you confuse a dominant, 10-8s are so rare in our sport anyway.
That's a 3-point spread.
That's a 3-point spread in one round. How could one judge see it 10-8 for one guy and another see it 10-9 for the other guy? It's not like I saw it 10-9 for this guy and I saw it 10-9 for that guy. No. It was a 10-8. It was a 10-8 for Kulabau.
Yeah, and these judges had only one other decision, and that was Castro and Felipe, and that was an easy one, and Holly Holm, which was an easy one. But
yeah,
we have the same judges all Fight Island, so it'll be interesting to see what we get in the next coming weeks. I mean, it's madness. We don't know what we're getting when we go to the card if it's going to be like that.
Yeah, it gets me excited for the decisions, I guess.
Yeah, in a bad way.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into the decision and be like, I think he won 30-27 and find out he comes out with a draw.
Yeah, a split draw. Not even a majority draw. It was I've never seen a split draw.
Yeah, that's wild.
Moving on. Sorry, back to...
Yeah, no, good. That's good to hit. Moving on, bantamweight, we had Kyler Phillips get the KO on Cameron Else. He looked good. I don't think he had a really strong opponent, but he looked good, and I don't have a whole bunch to add about him.
MMA Lab represent.
Yep. Then we get to women's bantamweight, Jermaine Durandame versus Juliana Pena, and I have a problem with this fight. Juliana Pena she's supposed to be a good grappler, and she's fighting a striker, and she gets submitted.
And Jermaine Durandame has been like a meme for her abysmal takedown defense and ground game.
Yes. And she was out cold for a while.
Yes.
I mean, I just don't even know what to think. And honestly, Durandame, going into the third round, I didn't know who was going to win. I thought maybe Durandame was losing. I think it was probably 1-1, but it could have easily been 2-0 for Juliana. And so she's out striking Durandame, and Durandame ends up getting a submission guillotine. I'm like, what the heck? I think this must be an overconfidence in Pena's, or maybe not overconfidence, an oversight in the ability of her opponents. She's got to realize this girl might not be the best grappler, but you can't give up your neck to anyone.
Yeah, anyone could. I mean, okay, I say it as Schmo sitting here in the chair, but anybody can lock in a guillotine. You don't have to have this pedigree of jiu-jitsu to catch somebody in a guillotine.
Grab your kid or your girlfriend and have them put you in a guillotine and try to get out. Have them squeeze and try to get out. You can't get to that point. And
no.
What the heck?
Yeah.
That's mostly what I have to say. I guess good win for Germaine de Randamie, way to pull that out, get a first submission in a big matchup there, move herself forward in that division.
Yeah, now, I mean, I'll talk after we talk about Holm.
Okay. First co-main event we'll talk about, Yorgan De Castro versus Carlos Felipe, and I was extremely disappointed in De Castro's performance. And this reminded me a lot of the Greg Hardy fight where he is kind of afraid to throw his hands, and here's what I think is his problem. So I think he won 6 fights in a row by KO in the first round. I think as he's winning these fights, he's getting a little more money, getting a little bit better coaching, has more coaches around him, more input. I think he's trying to become more of a boxer, picking his spots. But I don't think he's a good boxer. I think he has big power, and he's not throwing anything anymore. He's trying to pick his spots, be technical. And he's not an athletic, technical guy. He's a big guy who hits hard. He just needs to go in there and throw his hands at these guys.
Yeah.
Carlos Felipe just picked him apart with sheer volume mostly.
Yeah. What was the term you used last episode? Was it dance with the girl you came with or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go with what got you to that position, man. Throw your hands.
Yeah. And you cannot, at this point, when you're like at this level, you can't change what got you there. I mean,
yeah.
I think this is a match he could have won, but he never opened up and got dominated. I think it was 30-27, and it looks like easy work for Carlos Felipe, who, in his defense, he looked good. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I think this was a fight De Castro needed to not be in prelims for the rest of his career. I don't see him going anywhere, unless things change. Who knows?
Yeah.
Then we got to the main event where Holly Holm picked apart and destroyed Irene Aldana against what I really thought was going to happen. Holly Holm was so impressive in this fight. Ridiculous. I mean, every time she touched Irene, she's landing 2, 3, 4 shots and so fast. I forget that at one point she was the best boxer and the best kicks boxer in the world. I mean, you can't take that away. I don't know why I feel like an idiot besides the fact that she's 39 and didn't look at all. But I came into this fight thinking that Irene Aldana was really going to sleep one of the best female boxers in the world.
I mean, and we talked about it last time. This was I think I picked Holly Holm. I honestly can't remember.
I think you did too.
But I also acknowledged the fact that I felt like she had skated almost her whole MMA career off of that win over Rousey. This is the best she's looked since then.
Ever. I mean
arguably better than she looked that night against Ronda. It just, at the time, the Ronda thing felt so huge.
Yeah, obviously.
The feeling of what she did was greater than what she just did, but maybe the technicality of what she did was more impressive.
I would like to know, I'm sure it's somewhere, I wonder how many times, Holly Holmes landed 187 strikes. But in
Colby Covington stuff.
What?
I said that's Colby Covington stuff.
Yeah. But, oh my gosh, she's just so much more technical. And she was running away from, well, I shouldn't say running away. She was backing out from Aldana the whole fight, circling in. And Aldana would just run into her. And every time Aldana swung, she was catching 3-4.
Yeah.
3-4, 2 to the face, and a kick to the stomach. I mean, it was impressive stuff out of Holly Holm. I really like, too, every once in a while, Holly Holm she knew she was a better striker. They'd be on the mat, and she just pretty much cut her, be like, okay, let's get back up then. If I'm not going to finish you, then stand up with me. Nah, that was an impressive fight. She looked great, and she said she feels young.
Yeah.
She still wants to fight a lot. She says, all these people are saying I should retire, and she said, I'm not even close. Yeah. And she kind of proved it this night, I think. She beat a really –
money where her mouth is.
Yeah. She beat a really good opponent, and decisively.
Yes. So now where I want to go with this is now who gets the next lick at Amanda Nunes? Should Amanda Nunes defend her bantamweight belt, which I would assume she would, because now we're looking at Germaine de Randamie and Holly Holm Jermaine was at 35 this weekend, wasn't she? Or was she at 45?
She was they were both at bantamweight. So
Yeah, exactly. So,
yeah.
and I know we've seen this fight, and I know Jermaine beat Holly Holm, but
Yeah.
Based on the results
Jermaine
of
does,
this weekend, I feel like this has to be the title eliminator to see who gets the next shot at Amanda
in a
Nunes.
5-round fight, I think Holly Holm beats Jermaine Durandamy right now.
I
50
would
to
agree.
44.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it looks just like the fight that just happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, this actually, I really disappointed in my pick, but really enjoyed watching Holly Holm work this weekend.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
That's coming from a guy who usually I don't get usually really into the women's divisions as much. I just don't follow them quite as hard, but that was a fun fight to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to this week's fights.
Yeah. So, like I said earlier, I didn't have a whole bunch of time. I saw some of the fights this weekend, and this week, I deferred to Cal to get two fighters on the undercard that he wanted to explore because currently, my job is a high school science teacher, and with e-learning and all of this COVID stuff going on, I strictly just didn't have the time. And we're casuals, and I have no shame in letting Cal take over here. So, what do you got for me, Cal?
So it worked out. So I did kind of a hybrid this week. I highlighted three guys. There's so many undefeated guys on this card that I want to talk a little bit about all of them. I think some of them are frauds, and I think some of them are real studs. So quickly, let's start with Rodrigo Nascimento. He's 8-0. He's fighting Chris Dacos, who is a plus 230 underdog. Namacito is a minus 300 favorite. Namacito is 2-for-2 in the UFC, 2-0 with 2 subs. He's training an American Top Team. He's a really good grappler. He just walks people down. The thing is, he's not only a good grappler, he can strike as well. His striking leaves some to be desired, but he's good, really good when he gets people to the ground, and this is a heavyweight fight. He's an athlete. His opponent, Chris Dacos, and I'm sure at some point I'll get heat for this, but he doesn't look like an athlete. There's no way this guy can move like Nascimito. Oh my goodness. Rodrigo does.
Rodrigo. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm going for his Hispanic last name, but
Rodrigo, we apologize and come on the podcast. Okay.
Yeah. And I'll learn how to say your name so good if you come on the podcast. So well. Yeah, I mean, he had a first round submission in the Dana White Contender Series as well. He's been submitting guys kind of his whole life. I don't think he's ever a guy that's going to contend for a title, but I think this is a very winnable fight, and it's going to be fun to see how his submission attack works against a more accomplished opponent than he's been facing. The next guy I wanted to highlight was our old friend Impa Kasanganay.
Kasanganay.
Impa is 8-0. He won his last fight. He's 3-0 in the UFC, including the 2 Dana White Contender Series fights. His last fight was the decision over Maki Pitolo, which he dominated. He looked really good. He's once again, I want to highlight that he's a physical specimen. This dude is very ripped. It looks like he's a really hard worker. Following him on social media, he seems very focused and seems like he wants to fight a lot. Last time we talked about it, and I'll talk about it again, his left jab sets up absolutely everything. He's always attacking first with his left jab and then following that up with kicks, big right hands.
Yeah.
You look like you had a question.
No, I was just staring into nowhere.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, just get this blank look from Nelson. I'm like,
well, I know that when you're talking, my face isn't on the video in the podcast version, so I was just kind of zoning out.
I'm like, yeah, you just look at me like, I'm like, shit, is he not orthodox? I'm like thinking like shadow boxing in my head, trying to figure out where I messed up, but okay.
For those of you not watching the video version of the podcast, or even the people that are watching the video version of the podcast, I was literally just like my eyes were probably crossed, like just not paying attention at all. I'll call me out on it. I'm sorry.
No worries. The thing that's been fun to watch about him, and I'm sure you noticed this too in the Pitolo fight, is when I was researching him, I talked about how he was this really aggressive and sporadic fighter. And now he's kind of been a little more refined since he's got to the UFC, and I think that's probably good.
Yeah. I can't stop laughing.
You're good.
All right. So, I know that I've already made a joke about, the pro fighter come on our podcast, but I do want to take a second to get this clip. Impa, we really, really want you to come onto our podcast. I got extra close to the mic just to get a little bit more personal. I'm probably going to clip this, and I'm probably going to take a minute.
Genius.
Impa, I like you.
And he's fighting, Impa's a minus 270 favorite. He's fighting Joe Quinn Buckley, who's a plus 210 underdog with a record of 10-3. His only fight in the UFC was a loss to Kevin Holland, which
Yep.
a terrible loss, but I don't think he's on Impa's level. I think this is another stepping stone for Impa to get another big win and keep moving on up in the middleweight division.
Stardom. I
hope he keeps being down and keeps staying active. It's fun to watch a guy grow fast like this.
Yeah, and to see a guy that, to my knowledge, didn't have much MMA experience before he decided to immerse himself in this. Like, that is absolutely crazy. Like, Impa Sandhagen has made something for himself here.
So he's 8-0 now, but before didn't I say he fought 7 fights in 2.5 years or something?
Yes.
Yeah, just crazy. I mean, awesome stuff. The other one last highlight that I did doing these a little quicker, I did Omar Morales, who's fighting Giga Chikadze, yep. Omar is a minus 150 favorite. He's a 10-0 with 5 subs, 2 KOs. He's 2-0 in the UFC, training at Sanford MMA. This dude has crazy fast legs. Like, it looks like when he kicks people, like someone's holding his legs back with a rubber band, like a giant rubber band, and then just snaps and the leg just flips up and just drills people.
That's awesome.
Super aggressive, super fast. He's got a super high pace, and he's got a lot of power. The power and pace are sometimes hard to judge, though, when you get a guy like this who's never faced a high-level opponent, because you can look fast and powerful against Joe Schmo any day when you're watching some of these guys' fights before they were in the UFC. But from what I've seen, he looks really powerful, really strong. I do think he's got a real opponent, though. Giga's 10-2, 3-0 in the UFC, but 2 of those wins are split decisions, which I don't know. I was going to ask this. I always highlight that, and I don't know if I should, when I see a split decision or watch a fight in a split decision, if they get the win, if I should just throw that out the door that it's a split decision, or if I should keep that in my mind that, well, they could have lost that.
Yeah, I don't know. Really the scoring system of MMA is just so strange, and I know we've talked about it, and I could go on for hours, and I'm not going to. But I mean, a fight. I mean, you might as well, if it's a split decision, you might as well call it a draw. I mean, if you could have multiple people look at the fight, and some people say that guy won, and some people that's like nobody got the better of the other. Like
we'll get into that too when we get to Edison Barboza in a second here in his last fight.
Yeah.
But either way, in 2 of his wins in the UFC, at least one judge has thought he could have won that fight.
Yeah.
Or he could have lost.
So he could, via a very slim chance, be 1-2 in the UFC.
Exactly. Right? So with that said, I think this is a fun fight to watch. I think minus 150 for a guy with, I think minus 150 is a little heavy of a favorite for Omar Morales. I think he does win, but I think this will be an exciting fight and a good fight to watch. We got 2 guys that are, one's 2-0 in the UFC, one's 3-0 in the UFC. Both these guys are looking to make a name for themselves, and that's a fight I'm definitely excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Let's move on to the main card.
Oh, yeah.
We got to start out at featherweight, and excuse me in advance for these pronunciations. We have Youssef Zalala versus Leah Tupuria. These guys are, Youssef is a minus 185 favorite. He's got 2 KOs, 5 submissions, and is 3-0 in the UFC. He's currently 10-2 total. The thing that has me screaming fraud here, though, is before Youssef left the LFA, he lost 2 of his last 3, and his only win before he got to the UFC was a split decision win. Now, he is 3-0 in the UFC against not impressive opponents, but I don't understand how a guy can lose 2 of his last 3 and then get to the UFC.
Yeah.
His opponent is 8-0. This is his UFC debut. He's got 7 submissions and 8 finishes, so the other one was a KO. His longest fight has been 3 minutes and 35 seconds, and he's a plus 150 favorite let's just not talk about Yusuf's
Hold on.
UFC fights.
Wait.
Yes.
Which one is he? Is he plus 150 or is he a favorite?
He's a plus 150. The 8-0 guy is. Yusuf is a minus 185 favorite.
You said a plus 150 favorite.
Oh, I'm sorry. Plus 150 underdog. Yeah. Okay, but
I couldn't let that go.
No, that's good. I'm sure everyone was going crazy. Leah is 8-0 before the UFC, 8 finishes. This other guy only won one of his last 3 fights outside the UFC. At plus 150, I think Leah could be a strong, money-making underdog prediction.
Make that money. Go to Puria.
I don't know what the odds are. I think going by submission. Let's do sub 7 of his 8. That could be big money.
To our listeners, make money. Bet on Ilya Tapuria.
Yep.
Make that money.
I just don't have faith in a guy who's lost 2 of his last 3 fights in another organization, then comes to the UFC.
Yeah.
Next fight, we go up to heavyweight. We got Tom Aspinall versus Alan Baudot. Baudot. Yeah. Alan is 7-0 is 8-1 with 7 KOs. He's a really good counter striker. Tom is 7-0 with 1-0 in the UFC. He his 2 losses though, he got subbed really early in his career, and then he had a disqualification loss later. He trains with Till. He's really good. Darren Till, he trains with. He's an Englishman. He's a really good boxer. He's very clean and technical. His striking is really impressive.
Yeah.
Budo's got a lot of power. It's going to be your classic UFC matchup of one guy's got a bunch of power and one guy's way more technical and landing a lot more. And you can hope that Budo lands one and knocks him out, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. What are the odds on this one? Aspinall's got to be the favorite.
He is the favorite. For whatever reason, this is the one fight I didn't write down the odds.
Yeah, that's fine.
He is the favorite, though. I think it's a strong favorite. He's literally like a minus 200 or minus 250.
That's one that really jumps out at me in this main card of who I would
the guy who I want to
say as a metaphorical lock.
Yeah, he's I'm excited to see where he goes. I don't know how good he is. I want to see him fight some more good guys. Moving up, we got 4 fights left. The next fight is a middleweight fight. We have Marcus Perez fighting Dricus du Plessis. Marcus is plus 120. He's 12-3, 2-3 in the UFC. So this guy's 2-3 in the UFC. Swinging back to my earlier prediction, he was undefeated in the LFA, the same organization that Yusuf was fighting in.
Yep.
This guy's undefeated in the LFA, came in 2-3 in the UFC. He's kind of struggling. Dricus, minus 150 favorite, 14-2. He's won 10 of his last 11 fights. He's got 9 submissions, 5 KOs, and this is his UFC debut.
On my screen right here, it does say that he is the number 1 middleweight in South Africa.
Which I don't know how much that means, but he's the number 1 something.
Number 1. What's he supposed to do? Be better? Yeah. Be better than that?
That's fair. He can't be better than number 1. I think this is the perfect fight having him as the fourth before the third card on the third fight in the main card. I think this is the guy that the UFC thinks could be very good. I think fighting Marcus Perez, a guy who's 2-3 in the UFC, is a big stepping stone. I think this is a match to say goodbye to Perez and welcome to the middleweight division, Dricus. I definitely think Dricus is at minus 150. I think that's good odds to pick him to win.
Yes, I agree. Because why else would Marcus Perez be on a main card 3 fights in? I mean, let's be honest. Maybe I'll eat my words, but
yeah,
I think you're right on.
I think this is someone they're excited about. He's got 7 KOs. I think Dana White's thinking, we'll get this Dricus on the main card, have him fight Marcus Perez. He'll sleep him, and then he's going to start to get a fan following, and it'll be a perfect introduction to the UFC.
And then Dricus and Impa. Winner gets Adesanya.
At the same time, both of them. That might be the only chance.
Yes.
Next up, we have a fun heavyweight fight. We got Ben Rothwell versus Marcin Tybura. Yep. Ben Rothwell has been around forever, 38-12. He's a minus 190 favorite. He's beat OSP in his last fight, but OSP moved up to heavyweight.
Yep.
Rothwell significantly bigger.
Huge.
But can't take it away from him.
Yeah, also, shout out to one of my favorite MMA Twitter accounts, at Ben Rothwell's Belly Button.
Yep.
I really like you
Good one.
guys.
They
Yeah.
have good content.
Yeah.
He also has a win over Overeem, which is by far the most impressive of his career. Right now, he's on a 2-fight win streak. He does have losses to Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos, Andre Arlovsky, and he has. But another impressive thing about Ben Rothwell is he's got 28 KOs in 38 fights. 28 knockouts is a crazy number. And he is a minus 190 favorite. I think I already said that. His opponent, Tibera, is 19-6. He's a plus 155 underdog. He has a win over Arlovsky. Jeez, I don't know how.
Okay, Cal. It's Andre Arlovsky. He's the former champ.
Arlovsky.
I am forever. I think you should purposely mispronounce all the names now. Because today, as much as I didn't do anything to prepare for this episode, and as much research as Cal did, he's butchering the names. But it's
I do worse. Like I make sure I can say the guys who are actually fighting, and then I get down to my little notes of who they beat, and it's like all just mashed together. I'm trying to and then I mess up the first syllable, and I'm like, oh boy, there's not.
It's all right. Andre Arlovsky, please don't hurt us.
He has so Tibera has losses to Augusto Sakai, most recently Derek Lewis, Fabricio Werdum. He's been a big thing I have noticed. I feel like in the heavyweight division, it seems like these guys get on a tear where they can win 3-4 in a row, and when they start losing, things go downhill. Both these guys are on 2-fight win streaks, which is good. The thing that concerns me about Tibera is he has 4 losses by KO, and I think those are 3 of those are in his last 3 losses are by stone cold knockout. I think the chin is questionable. I think this is I'm pretty confident we're going to get a Ben Rothwell win and maybe a knockout here.
Yep. And I'm here for it.
Yeah. I'm always excited to watch a Ben Rothwell fight.
Yep. And his belly button.
Yep. I just stare the whole time. Okay. Co-main event. We got Edson Barboza versus Makwan Amirkhani. I kind of got it.
Yeah.
Amirkhani is 60-4, plus 195 underdog. He's got 11 submissions. He's 6-2 in the UFC. In his last fight, he was TKO'd by Shane Burgos, fighting the 20-9 Edson Barboza, who is a minus 250 favorite. Edison's got 12 KOs. He's lost to people like Donald Cerrone, Tony Ferguson, Khabib, Kevin Lee, Justin Gaethje, Paul Felder. He's fought some guys. He also wins over Dan Hooker, Paul Felder, and Anthony Pettis. I mean,
Edson Barboza, although he may have a fair amount of losses on his record, is a guy that is consistently fighting the top tier of the featherweight division. I mean,
he had a quick rise to the top, and that put him in a place where he could no longer fight.
Yes.
I mean, some of these guys have slower builds where they can build up, fight, get a bunch of wins, get a fast rise to the top, beat some studs, and that left him to only fight studs. This is the first real non-big name he's fought. Yeah,
and someone that I would compare Edson Barboza to with his skill set and the fact that maybe he's not at the point where he's beating these top-tier guys, but he can't go any lower or else it's more so of a joke, is like a Jeremy Stevens, who happens to be in the same division. You know, I mean, Jeremy Stevens, murdered so many people in a row that then when he got to that top tier and then, couldn't quite get past the top of the top, now is kind of sitting in that limbo of, maybe I'm not good enough to beat any of the guys I'm fighting, but I do belong here. And everybody knows that he belongs there.
Yeah. You can't beat anybody above you and you can beat all the guys below you. So you're stuck right there. Edson Barboza's last 2 losses were both losses via split decision.
Yeah.
First one to Paul Felder. The last one to Dan Ige, which I like Dan Ige, but Barboza was robbed in that fight.
Yep.
Blatantly stole that win away from him. He definitely should have won. I had money on Ige, and Ige got the win, and I still felt wrong for taking that money. I think I stole it. But I picked Barboza to win here. I think it's going to be a nice fight for him to have a comeback win. I think he's on a 3-fight losing streak right now.
Yeah.
And now for the main event, we got a big one here. Marlon Moraes versus Corey Sandhagen. Moraes
This
is
is a good one.
23-6-1, a plus 120 underdog. He's got a win most recently over Jose Aldo. He's got a win over Aljamain Sterling and John Dodson. His most recent loss was to Henry Cejudo. The one thing I'd like to mention about the Aljamain Sterling win was it was in 2017, and don't take that as he could beat Aljamain Sterling today.
Boy, I mean, this is really one that you could go really in depth on. I think, I think the odds favor. I believe that Sandhagen is the favorite here.
Yep, he's
12
12
and I don't know if that is warranted. And Sandhagen's the favorite. I'm going to take Sandhagen as my pick, but I don't think that based on their bodies of work that he deserves to be the favorite. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. Like, I'm picking him. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I believe in Corey Sandhagen, but I just don't know if the odds makers, I'm contradicting myself in the same sentence, but
yeah, no,
Marlon Moraes, I thought, was solidly the number one contender and deserved to be fighting for that vacant title instead of Jose Aldo. Mm-hmm. Like, he literally beat Jose Aldo, and then they gave the title shot to Jose. Like,
they literally threw out that win. They literally were like,
yeah.
I don't really think you won that fight, so.
And unpopular opinion, I had Moraes winning that fight.
Yeah, well,
everybody said that he got robbed. I thought Moraes won.
People getting paid. I mean, but Aljamain Sterling beat Corey Sandhagen. I mean, you can. This is I can't believe that there's even. I think this should be a pick'em fight in my opinion. I think. I don't know where it's gonna go. If I bet on this fight, I'm gonna pick Marlon Moraes. I think, just on the sheer fact that he's an underdog. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what. I'll just go with Marlon Moraes. I think he's gonna win either way.
I think if it goes to the ground, it favors Sandhagen, but if they stand and bang, I think that Moraes is right in his wheelhouse.
Yeah, I mean,
he's a kickboxer at heart.
He hasn't lost in a long time, excluding the Henry Cejudo loss.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's been pretty much unscathed.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a really fun weekend of fights. There's a lot. I think this would be a great, if you're not doing anything on Saturday, start right when the prelims card, watch all those fights, because there's a bunch of young guys with very few losses who are just getting introduced to the UFC. I think there's like 10 people maybe making their UFC debut this weekend.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. And one of the things that I have found a lot of joy in, and I hope, our listeners too, if they're getting really, just kind of starting to get immersed in this MMA world, is that if you can find a guy and latch onto him before everyone else knows about him, and you believe in him before he sees the success, and then, then he goes on to have all the success, I think that is really something special that I have enjoyed throughout, watching and following MMA and the UFC.
Yeah, it can be tell your friends I told you so.
Exactly. And those are the type of people that we, hope that we'll be able to have on this podcast, so that you can get to kind of know them personally and start to follow their careers.
Yeah. Last thing I want to talk about today is all the buzz going around Israel Adesanya and John Jones fighting. Thoughts?
Yeah. Boy, I want Izzy to defend the belt at middleweight a few more times. Not that he hasn't proven that he's the baddest man in the division, but I think that, okay, this is going to take a spin. I wouldn't mind seeing Chris Weidman versus Israel Adesanya.
Yeah, me neither. Everyone's like, oh, no, Weidman's going to get the shot. And I'm like, I want to see it. I hope he does.
I mean, the storyline of nobody believed Chris Weidman could beat Anderson Silva, and then he did it twice. Like, and now Izzy is kind of like killer. Silva 2.0. Like, that's more interesting to me than just, let's do Whitaker again, or maybe
Izzy says
just because who else we got?
Izzy wants to fight for the end of the year. He says,
yeah,
throw him on the December card versus Weidman, and he can still fight the winner of. He's probably going to win that fight.
I think that fight is something that both parties would be interested in. If I'm Chris Weidman, I'm saying, you bet this is a clean route, or this is my quickest route to a championship. And if I lose, then it's written that, it's my time to be done. Or he wins and becomes champion and makes his goal, which I don't think will happen.
Yeah.
Plus, I think in Izzy's eyes, like, sure, easy title defense. Like, Now, I believe that Izzy would win that fight, obviously, but I think it's more competitive than everyone is memeing it to be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got nothing against that. I do think if there is a time though where at any point that Izzy and John Jones
Oh,
are willing to sign the paper and fight each other, you have to do that moment.
yes, yes.
That
I also
situation.
forgot how we got on the topic. Yes,
No, that's good. That's good to talk about
I
that. But that
do.
situation is
Yeah, as much as I would love to see it right now, I want Jones to go explore at heavyweight. I want to see him fight the baddest dudes on the planet and just see how it goes.
mm-hmm. Last thing. Episode's getting longer. Let's end it here. Who wins if Izzy and John Jones fight?
John Jones.
Really?
Yes.
I think Israel Adesanya beats him.
Wow. All right. Well,
John Jones should
maybe.
Dominic. Okay, we're not going to get into this. We'll just end the episode there. I can
All
go
right.
on for hours about this.
Thanks, guys. If you haven't already, follow us on Twitter at Casual Combat MMA. Follow us on Instagram at the same handle, and follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to us wherever you get podcasts, and that's it. We out.